when a boy donated his only toy. He never imagined it would return months later with a life-changing surprise. What 8-year-old Tommy didn't realize was that his selfless act would set off a chain of events that would return to him in ways he could never imagine. Sometimes, the universe has a way of recognizing true generosity, especially when it comes from those with the least to give. Tommy's story proves that sometimes the things we release with love find their way back to us carrying miracles. But what happened when his beloved toy returned would change his life forever. In a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town, 8-year-old Tommy slept with his arms wrapped tightly around Bruno, a worn teddy bear with one eye missing and stuffing poking through several seams. To most, Bruno looked like a toy that should have been thrown away years ago. To Tommy, he was everything. "Good morning, Bruno," Tommy whispered each day, carefully placing the bear on his pillow before getting ready for school. "Watch over Mom while I'm gone." At school, Tommy sat silently as classmates boasted about their latest video games, action figures, and remote-controlled cars. When asked what toys he got for his birthday, Tommy would simply shrug and say, "I already have everything I need." What his classmates didn't understand was that Bruno wasn't just a toy. He was Tommy's confidant, his protector during thunderstorms, and the only gift his father had given him before disappearing from their lives 3 years ago. When Tommy held Bruno, he still felt his father's presence, still remembered the warmth of being a complete family. But Tommy's world was about to be tested in a way no 8-year-old should ever experience. The school gymnasium buzzed with excitement as Ms. Peterson announced the annual Children's Hospital Toy Drive. "Remember, class, these toys will go to children who are very sick and have nothing to play with during their long hospital stays." Tommy sat straighter in his chair, his small fingers instinctively reaching for the zipper of his backpack, where Bruno was safely tucked away. He never went anywhere without his teddy bear, too afraid of losing the last connection to his father. The worn fabric of Bruno's ear peeked out from the backpack, as if the bear was listening to Ms. Peterson's words too. "Some of these children might not make it home for Christmas," Ms. Peterson continued, her voice softening. "Your donation might be the only joy they experience this holiday season. Think about how lucky most of you are to have homes filled with toys and games." Around him, Tommy could hear his classmates whispering excitedly about which toys they could part with. "I've got like 3 PlayStations," boasted Jeremy from behind him. "I could totally give one away." Melissa was telling her friends about the mountain of stuffed animals she had collected over the years. "My mom says they're just collecting dust anyway." Tommy remained silent, his mind racing. He didn't have mountains of toys or extra gaming consoles. He had Bruno, just Bruno. During lunch, while other kids chatted about their potential donations, Tommy sat alone at the end of a table, unwrapping his simple peanut butter sandwich. He pulled Bruno partially out of his backpack, keeping the bear hidden under the table. "What would Dad want me to do?" he whispered to the bear, so quietly that no one could hear him over the cafeteria noise. Bruno's remaining button eyes seemed to stare back at him knowingly. That night, Tommy sat cross-legged on his bed, Bruno placed carefully in front of him. His mother worked the late shift at the diner, leaving Tommy alone with his thoughts and his one true friend. The apartment was eerily quiet, except for the occasional rumble of a passing truck and the rhythmic dripping from the leaky kitchen faucet. "What do you think, Bruno?" he whispered, straightening the bear's worn bow tie. "Those kids in the hospital, they don't have anyone to talk to when they're scared. They're stuck in beds with machines beeping all around them." He remembered his own brief hospital stay last year when he had his tonsils removed. How frightening it had been, and how Bruno had made it bearable. Tommy's mind flashed to the nights he'd spent clutching Bruno during his mother's tearful phone calls about overdue rent, during thunderstorms that shook their thin apartment walls, during the lonely hours when other kids were playing with siblings or parents. Bruno had been there through it all, when the electricity was shut off for 3 days last winter, when Tommy had to wear the same pair of shoes until they had holes because there wasn't money for new ones, when the other kids made fun of his second-hand clothes. He pulled open his nightstand drawer and took out the only photo he had of his father. A creased Polaroid showing a smiling man with Tommy's same dark curls, holding a baby Tommy in one arm and a brand new Bruno in the other hand. His father had chosen Bruno specially, his mother had told him. "He picked the one with the kindest eyes," she'd said. His hands trembled as he picked up Bruno, studying the stitching his mother had redone countless times to keep the bear together. The right arm had been sewn back on twice. The left ear was slightly lopsided from being repaired after a particularly rough day at the playground. Each stitch represented a moment when his mother had made sure that Tommy's treasure remained whole, despite their challenging circumstances. "You helped me be brave," he whispered, a tear sliding down his cheek and landing on Bruno's fuzzy nose. "Maybe you could help one of those kids be brave too. Maybe one of those kids needs you even more than I do right now." Tommy hugged Bruno tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of home that clung to the bear's worn fur. He remembered his father's words from long ago. Sometimes being brave means doing something that hurts, because it's the right thing to do. The decision felt like a physical pain in his chest. But as Tommy carefully placed Bruno in a paper bag for the toy drive, he somehow knew it was right. He added a small note written in his best handwriting. "This is Bruno. He's really good at keeping away bad dreams and making you feel brave. Please take good care of him." Before sealing the bag, Tommy hesitated, then gently removed Bruno's red bow tie, the one his mother had made from a scrap of his father's old tie. "I'll keep this to remember you," he whispered, tucking the small fabric piece under his pillow. "And whoever gets you will give you a new one." That night, for the first time in his 8 years of life, Tommy fell asleep without Bruno's comforting presence. His pillow grew damp with silent tears as he clutched the tiny bow tie in his fist. What Tommy didn't know was that saying goodbye to Bruno would be just the beginning of his heartbreak. The morning after Tommy donated Bruno, he woke reaching for a teddy bear that wasn't there. His hand grasped at empty sheets, and for a moment he felt disoriented, as if he'd woken up in the wrong bed. Reality crashed over him like a cold wave. Bruno was gone, given away by his own choice. The bedroom seemed larger somehow, emptier, as if Bruno had taken up more space than his small, stuffed body should have. Tommy sat up and looked at the dent in his pillow where Bruno had slept every night for as long as he could remember. He ran his fingers over the small red bow tie he'd kept, the fabric worn smooth from years of Bruno's adventures. Outside, rain pattered against the window, matching Tommy's mood. "Tommy, you're going to be late for school," his mother called from the kitchen. The smell of slightly burnt toast wafted through the apartment. Tommy could hear the familiar sound of her rushing around, the clink of dishes, the squeak of the cabinet that always needed oil. He dressed slowly, each movement feeling heavier than usual. His backpack seemed too light without Bruno's weight inside. Twice, he unzipped the front pocket to check if Bruno was there, a habit so ingrained that his hands moved before his brain could remind him of yesterday's decision. When he emerged from his bedroom, his mother looked up from packing his lunch and immediately noticed the change. "Where's Bruno?" she asked, her eyes scanning his empty arms, then his backpack. She was wearing her diner uniform, the collar already showing signs of a long day ahead, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail that Tommy knew would come undone by evening. Tommy swallowed hard, suddenly unsure how to explain. I gave him to the toy drive, for the sick kids. His mother's hands stilled, the peanut butter knife suspended midair. "Oh, Tommy," she whispered, her eyes widening. "But Bruno was your—" "It's okay, Mom," Tommy interrupted, trying to sound braver than he felt. "Some kid in the hospital probably needs him more than me. Dad would have wanted me to share." His voice caught on the word Dad, and he looked down at his shoes. The left one had a scuff mark that wouldn't come off no matter how hard he rubbed it. His mother set down the knife and wrapped him in a tight hug. Tommy could feel her tears dropping onto his hair as she whispered, "Your father would be so proud of you. I'm so proud of you." Her hands, rough from years of waitressing and housework, gently smoothed his hair. She smelled of coffee and the cheap vanilla lotion she always used. "Do you think I did the right thing?" Tommy asked, his voice muffled against her uniform. She pulled back, holding him by the shoulders to look directly into his eyes. "Sometimes, the right things are the hardest things, Tommy. What you did was incredibly kind and selfless. That's exactly the kind of man your father was, always thinking of others." Tommy nodded, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and something else, maybe pride, swelling in his chest. "Now eat your breakfast before it gets cold," his mother said, wiping her eyes quickly. "And remember, you can always talk to me about missing Bruno or missing Dad." At school, Ms. Peterson beamed when Tommy silently handed her the paper bag containing Bruno. "Thank you, Tommy," she said, not yet realizing what was inside. "This is very generous of you." Tommy lingered as she opened the bag, watching her expression change as she recognized what he had donated. Her eyes softened, and she looked at him with a new understanding. "Tommy, is this your special bear? The one you always keep in your backpack?" Tommy nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Ms. Peterson knelt down to his level. "Are you sure you want to donate him? You don't have to." "I'm sure," Tommy said quietly. "He's good at making people feel better when they're scared. And hospital kids are probably really scared." Ms. Peterson's eyes glistened. "This might be the most generous donation we've ever received," she said, carefully placing Bruno back in the bag. "Would you like to write a special note to go with him, so the child who receives him will know how special he is?" Tommy thought for a moment, then nodded. Ms. Peterson gave him a note card, and he carefully wrote, "This is Bruno. He's really good at keeping away bad dreams and making you feel brave. He likes to be hugged tight when it's storming. His favorite stories are about pirates and dragons. Please take good care of him. Tommy." Throughout the day, Tommy felt Bruno's absence like a physical ache. When Jeremy pushed him during recess, there was no Bruno to whisper his frustrations to. When he aced his spelling test, there was no Bruno waiting in his backpack to hear the good news. The empty space beside him on the bus ride home felt enormous. Twice, he caught himself reaching for his backpack zipper, a reflex to check on Bruno after any significant moment. Each time, the realization that Bruno wasn't there hit him anew. By the end of the school day, Tommy felt exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. That evening, his mother worked an extra shift, leaving Tommy alone in the apartment. Mrs. Gonzalez from next door checked in on him, bringing a plate of homemade cookies. "My Carlos told me what you did," she said, her accent thick but warm. "Giving away your special bear. That was very brave, mijo." Tommy thanked her for the cookies, but didn't feel like talking. After she left, he sat on his bed, staring at the indent in his pillow where Bruno had slept for 8 years. The small red bow tie was clutched in his hand, but it wasn't the same as having Bruno's soft presence. He tried watching TV, but none of his favorite shows seemed interesting. He tried reading, but couldn't focus on the words. Eventually, he just lay on his bed, looking at the cracks in the ceiling that sometimes, if you squinted just right, looked like a map to hidden treasure. Bruno had always been the navigator on those imaginary treasure hunts. For the first time, Tommy understood what it truly meant to sacrifice something you loved. It wasn't just the absence of Bruno that hurt. It was knowing he would never again feel that particular softness, never again straighten that crooked ear, never again whisper secrets to that one button eye that somehow always seemed to understand. When his mother came home late that night, she found Tommy asleep, still fully dressed, clutching Bruno's bow tie. She gently removed his shoes and pulled a blanket over him, not wanting to wake him from what appeared to be his first peaceful sleep since giving Bruno away. Days passed, then weeks. Tommy learned to sleep without Bruno, though nightmares came more frequently now. He stopped reaching for his backpack to check on a teddy bear that wasn't there. The space in his heart where Bruno had lived began to scab over, though it never fully healed. December arrived with an unusual cold snap. The apartment's heating struggled to keep up, and Tommy and his mother took to wearing extra layers indoors. At school, the toy drive ended with a celebration. Ms. Peterson announced they had collected over 300 toys for the Children's Hospital. "Thanks to your generosity, many children will have a brighter holiday season," she told the class. "The hospital staff will be distributing the toys next week." Tommy wondered if the child who received Bruno would understand how special he was. Would they notice the careful stitching where his mother had repaired him over the years? Would they see the slight discoloration on his right paw where Tommy had once spilled orange juice? Would they feel the love that had been poured into that bear for 8 years? His mother noticed the change in him, a new quietness, a maturity beyond his years. She worked extra hours and surprised him with a small action figure one evening. But they both knew it couldn't replace what had been lost. "I know it's not Bruno," she said, as she handed him the plastic superhero. "But I thought you might like something new to keep you company." Tommy thanked her and placed the action figure on his nightstand. It stayed there, untouched, for days. It wasn't that he didn't appreciate his mother's gesture. He did. But the action figure didn't have history. It didn't carry memories. It was just plastic and paint, not a repository of tears and laughter and whispered secrets. One night, as a particularly bad thunderstorm rattled the windows, Tommy found himself especially missing Bruno. Lightning flashed, illuminating his room in stark white bursts, and the thunder that followed seemed to shake the entire building. "Do you think Bruno is making someone happy?" Tommy asked one night as his mother tucked him in, the storm still raging outside. She smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "I know he is, sweetheart. Just like he made you happy." "Do you think they know all his stories?" Tommy asked. "Like how he once fought off 100 pirates to save the treasure? Or how he can turn invisible when the lights go out?" His mother smiled. Maybe they're making new stories with him. And maybe Bruno is telling them all about the brave boy who took care of him for so long. This thought comforted Tommy somewhat. He liked the idea of Bruno sharing their adventures with someone new, someone who needed those stories as much as he once had. At school, Tommy found himself watching the younger kids with their stuffed animals and toys. A kindergartner named Lily always carried a stuffed giraffe. A first grader called Max had a well-loved dinosaur. Tommy wondered if they understood how important these companions would become in their memories someday. As Christmas approached, the apartment felt emptier than ever. They couldn't afford a tree this year. The heating bill had been unexpectedly high, and his mother's hours at the diner had been cut back. Tommy helped her string up paper snowflakes in the windows and made a card for her with materials from school. The card featured a carefully drawn bear that looked suspiciously like Bruno, wearing a Santa hat. Inside, Tommy had written, "To Mom, who works harder than Santa's elves. Love, Tommy." When she opened it on Christmas Eve, she cried and hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. "We don't need much," his mother told him as they shared hot chocolate on Christmas Eve. "We have each other." They sat on their worn couch, wrapped in blankets, watching the Christmas lights from the apartment across the street blink on and off in patterns of red and green. Tommy nodded, but his eyes drifted to the empty spot on his bed where Bruno should have been. He wondered where his teddy bear was now, if some child in a hospital bed was holding him tight, finding comfort in those worn paws and that single button eye. That night, as his mother slept, Tommy stood by the window, watching the snow fall in the yellow glow of the street lamp. He pressed his hand against the cold glass and whispered, "Merry Christmas, Bruno. I hope you're keeping someone warm tonight." What Tommy couldn't possibly know was that Bruno's journey had only just begun, and that it would lead back to him in the most unexpected way. January arrived with a vengeance, bringing with it the coldest temperatures the city had seen in decades. Schools closed for 3 consecutive snow days, and Tommy spent the time helping his mother clear the walkways around their apartment building. The landlord had promised a discount on their rent if they maintained the property during the winter months. "Keep your scarf over your face," his mother reminded him as they shoveled the latest snowfall. "This wind will freeze your nose right off." Her own nose was red with cold, her breath creating plumes of white vapor in the frigid air. Tommy nodded, adjusting the frayed scarf she had knitted for him 2 Christmases ago. The wool was scratchy against his skin, but he didn't mind. It smelled faintly of the lavender soap his mother used for their laundry. His fingers, despite the thick gloves, had grown numb from the cold, but he continued shoveling. The physical work helped distract him from the Bruno-shaped hole that still lingered in his life. At night, he still clutched the small red bow tie, though he no longer needed it to fall asleep. The apartment was drafty during these cold days. They stuffed towels under the doors and covered the windows with plastic sheets to keep the warmth in. Tommy and his mother spent evenings huddled under blankets, playing card games and drinking hot chocolate made with water instead of milk to save money. "Spring will be here before we know it," his mother would say. Though Tommy noticed how she kept checking the thermostat and frowning at the electric bill that had arrived in the mail. When school finally reopened, the hallways buzzed with stories of snowball fights and sledding adventures. Jeremy bragged about his new PlayStation games, while Melissa showed off photos of her family's ski trip. Tommy listened quietly, having no exciting snow day tales to share beyond shoveling sidewalks and helping Mrs. Gonzalez carry her groceries up 3 flights of stairs when the elevator broke down. During morning announcements, Ms. Peterson stood before the class with an unusual brightness in her eyes. "I have an exciting new project to announce," she explained, writing the details on the whiteboard with her neat, looping handwriting. "We'll be partnering with the Children's Hospital for a Pen Pal program. Each of you will be assigned a child who's staying at the hospital long-term. You'll exchange letters once a week." Tommy's heart skipped a beat. The Children's Hospital, where Bruno had gone. A strange mixture of hope and anxiety bubbled in his stomach. His fingers instinctively reached for his backpack, a movement so automatic he didn't realize he was searching for Bruno until his hand met empty space. This is a wonderful opportunity to make a difference in someone's life, Ms. Peterson continued. Many of these children are facing serious illnesses and spend weeks or months away from home and friends. Your letters could be the highlight of their week. Melissa raised her hand. Can we send them presents too? That's thoughtful, Melissa, but for now, let's focus on the letters. The hospital has strict rules about gifts, Ms. Peterson explained. However, you can include drawings or small paper crafts with your letters. Tommy's mind raced with possibilities. Could Bruno be there? Would his pen pal mention receiving a one-eyed teddy bear? The chances seemed impossibly small, and yet he couldn't help hoping. Later that week, Ms. Peterson handed out the pen pal assignments. The classroom hummed with excitement as students compared their assigned hospital buddies. I got a 10-year-old boy who likes dinosaurs, Jeremy announced. Mine is only 5, Melissa said. She likes princesses. Tommy received a sheet with basic information. Eliza, age 7, likes drawing and stories about animals. The paper also mentioned that Eliza had been in the hospital for over a month and would likely remain there for several more months. No specific illness was mentioned, just a note that she was under cardiac care. Cardiac means heart, Ms. Peterson explained when Tommy asked. Eliza has some problems with her heart, so she needs special care from the doctors. That evening, Tommy sat at the kitchen table, chewing his pencil as he tried to compose his first letter. The blank paper seemed intimidating. What should he say to a girl he'd never met? Should he mention Bruno? What if she was the one who had received him? Would that seem strange or make her uncomfortable? His mother noticed his struggle as she prepared their simple dinner of spaghetti. Having trouble with your letter? Tommy nodded. I don't know what to write to someone who's sick in the hospital. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and sat beside him. Write to her like you would to any friend. Tell her about yourself. Ask questions about things she likes. She's still a regular kid, Tommy, even if she's in the hospital. But what if she's really sick? What if she's sad all the time? His mother squeezed his shoulder. Then your letter might be exactly what makes her day a little brighter. Encouraged, Tommy began to write. Dear Eliza, he finally wrote. My name is Tommy. I'm 8 years old. I like stories about pirates and dragons. Do you have a favorite animal? My mom says I ask too many questions sometimes. Do you have any toys with you at the hospital? I hope you feel better soon. Your new friend, Tommy. He paused, wondering if he should mention Bruno, but decided against it. There was no way to know if Eliza had received his bear, and it seemed too personal for a first letter to a stranger. He sealed the letter in an envelope and carefully wrote Eliza's name on the front, adding a small drawing of a smiling sun in the corner. Ms. Peterson had explained that she would collect the letters and deliver them to the hospital's child life specialist, who would then distribute them to the patients. The next day, Tommy handed in his letter with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. What would Eliza be like? Would she even want to write back to him? The wait for a response felt interminable. Tommy found himself checking the classroom mailbox multiple times a day, earning a gentle reminder from Ms. Peterson that the hospital children needed time to respond, and that the letters would only be delivered once a week. During the waiting period, Tommy found himself thinking about Eliza often. At night, as he clutched Bruno's bow tie, he wondered if she was awake too, unable to sleep in the strange hospital environment. Was she scared? Did she miss home? Did she have a special toy or stuffed animal to keep her company? A week later, Ms. Peterson distributed responses from their pen pals. Some students tore into their envelopes immediately, while others, like Tommy, held them carefully, almost reverently. Tommy's hands trembled slightly as he opened the envelope addressed to him. The letter inside was written in wobbly handwriting on paper, decorated with rainbow stickers. Dear Tommy, thank you for your letter. I like cats best. I have been in the hospital for 2 months because my heart doesn't work right. I have lots of toys here, but my favorite is a teddy bear someone donated. His name is Bruno, and he only has one eye, but I love him. He sleeps next to me during all my tests. Do you have a favorite toy? Your friend, Eliza. Tommy stared at the letter, reading it 3 times to be sure. Bruno. She had Bruno. His Bruno was keeping her company through heart problems. Tears pricked at his eyes, and he quickly wiped them away before anyone could notice. A strange feeling washed over him, a mixture of loss renewed and something else. Something like pride or perhaps relief. Jeremy leaned over from the next desk. What did your hospital kid write? Mine just drew a bunch of dinosaurs. Tommy instinctively folded the letter and tucked it away. Just stuff about being in the hospital, he mumbled. This felt too personal, too important to share with Jeremy, who had once made fun of Tommy for bringing Bruno to school. Throughout the day, Tommy found it difficult to concentrate. His mind kept returning to Eliza and Bruno. What were the odds? Out of all the children in the hospital, his pen pal had received his bear. It felt like more than coincidence. Almost like his father had somehow arranged it from wherever he was now. That night, he showed the letter to his mother, who read it with widening eyes. Oh, Tommy, she whispered. What are the chances? Do you think it's really my Bruno? Tommy asked, though he already knew the answer. There couldn't be many one-eyed teddy bears named Bruno being donated at the same time. His mother nodded, her eyes glistening. It seems like Bruno found exactly where he needed to be. Should I tell her? Tommy asked. That Bruno used to be mine? His mother considered this, stirring the pot of vegetable soup that would be their dinner. The kitchen was warm and fragrant, a stark contrast to the cold world outside the windows. What do you think, sweetheart? How would you feel if you were Eliza? Tommy thought about it, really thought about it. If he were in the hospital with a heart that didn't work right, and someone told him that the teddy bear bringing him comfort used to belong to someone else, would that make Bruno feel less special? Less his? I think maybe not yet, Tommy decided. Maybe I should get to know her first. His mother smiled. I think that's very wise, Tommy. In his next letter, Tommy wrote carefully, not wanting to reveal too much. Dear Eliza, I'm happy you have a special teddy bear. Bruno sounds nice. I used to have a special toy too, but I gave it away to someone who needed it more. What kind of tests do you have to do? Are they scary? My dad used to tell me that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing things even when you are scared. After sealing this letter, Tommy felt a strange sense of connection to Eliza. Not just because she had Bruno, but because they now shared something neither of them fully understood. It was as if Bruno was a bridge between them, carrying Tommy's strength to Eliza. The correspondence continued for weeks. Tommy learned that Eliza was waiting for a heart transplant. She told him about the hospital, the kind nurses, the beeping machines, the ceiling tiles she counted when she couldn't sleep, 187 in her room. She described how she missed her school and friends, how the hospital food was mostly yucky except for the chocolate pudding, how she wasn't allowed to run or jump or do many of the things other 7-year-olds took for granted. Tommy told her about school, about the snow fort he'd built with Carlos from next door, about the book on constellations he'd borrowed from the library. He described the birds that nested outside his window and the way the sunset looked from the roof of his apartment building, where his mother let him go only when she was there to supervise. In each letter, Eliza mentioned Bruno, how he sat with her during procedures, how the nurses had given him a hospital bracelet of his own, how she'd made him a new bow tie out of a blue ribbon a nurse had given her. A new bow tie. Tommy's fingers instinctively reached for the red one he kept under his pillow. The thought of Bruno with a different bow tie was strange, like seeing someone you know well with a dramatic new haircut. But it also felt right somehow. Like Bruno was starting a new chapter, just as Tommy was. As the weeks passed, Tommy began including small drawings with his letters, simple sketches of dragons and pirates that he thought might make Eliza smile. In return, she sent colorful drawings of cats, of the view, from her hospital window and, most precious to Tommy, a crayon portrait of Bruno sitting on her hospital bed. Tommy pinned this drawing above his bed, right where he could see it before falling asleep. Bruno looked different. The blue bow tie was carefully colored in, and Eliza had drawn his missing eye back in. But Tommy would have recognized him anywhere. As winter melted into spring, Tommy found himself looking forward to Eliza's letters more and more. She became real to him beyond just being the girl who had his bear. She was funny and kind, even when describing difficult days at the hospital. She had a younger brother named Max, who visited on weekends. Her favorite color was purple. She wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. She hated the taste of medicine and the way the heart monitor adhesives pulled at her skin when removed. Tommy began to see his sacrifice differently. Giving up Bruno had been painful, yes, but it had led to this unexpected friendship. It had given Bruno a new purpose, to comfort a girl whose challenges made Tommy's own problems seem small by comparison. Ms. Peterson noticed the special care Tommy took with his letters to Eliza. "You've really connected with your pen pal," she commented one day, as Tommy handed in an envelope decorated with carefully drawn stars. "That's wonderful, Tommy." "She's my friend now," Tommy said simply, realizing as he spoke that it was true, despite never having met. Despite the 3-year age gap, despite everything, Eliza had become his friend. Then, in late April, a letter came that changed everything. "Dear Tommy, the doctors say they found a heart for me. I'm having my operation tomorrow. Bruno is coming with me to the special room. The nurses say he can't be in there during the actual surgery, but he'll be waiting when I wake up. I'm scared, but I'm trying to be brave, like you said your dad told you. If something happens to me, will you take care of Bruno? Your friend, Eliza." The letter was shorter than usual, the handwriting shakier. There were no stickers, no drawings, just these few sentences that made Tommy's stomach twist with worry. Tommy read the letter during lunch break and felt his own heart pounding. Surgery, heart transplant. These were serious, grown-up things that he only vaguely understood from medical shows his mother sometimes watched. But he knew enough to be worried. People didn't always wake up from surgeries. His father had gone to the hospital after the accident and never come home. The thought of Eliza, bright, funny Eliza with her cat drawings and her stories about Bruno's hospital adventures, not waking up was too terrible to consider. And yet, she had considered it. Had thought to ask Tommy to take care of Bruno if the worst happened. Tommy couldn't eat his lunch. He sat alone at the edge of the cafeteria, reading and rereading Eliza's letter until the bell rang. During afternoon classes, he couldn't focus. His mind filled with images of hospital rooms and surgeons and a small girl clutching a one-eyed teddy bear. When he got home, he showed the letter to his mother, who read it with a hand pressed to her mouth. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, pulling him into a hug. "Heart transplants are very serious, but doctors are amazing these days. They do these operations all the time." "But she's scared," Tommy said, his voice muffled against his mother's shoulder. "And she asked me to take Bruno if she doesn't—" "Shh," his mother soothed, stroking his hair. "Let's not think about that. Let's think positive thoughts for Eliza." That evening, for the first time since his father died, Tommy asked his mother if they could pray together. "I don't remember how," he admitted. "Dad used to do it with me, but that was a long time ago." His mother's eyes softened. "There's no wrong way to pray, Tommy. Just speak from your heart." So they knelt together beside his bed, hands clasped. "Please let Eliza be okay," he whispered, eyes squeezed shut. "And let Bruno help her be brave. And let the doctors do everything right. And if you're listening, Dad, please watch over Eliza during her operation. She's my friend, and she has Bruno now, and she needs to get better." His voice caught on the last words, and his mother squeezed his hand tightly. "Amen," she whispered, and Tommy repeated it, the word feeling strange and familiar all at once on his tongue. That night, Tommy slept with Bruno's red bow tie clutched in his hand, imagining that somehow it connected him to Bruno and, through Bruno, to Eliza in her hospital bed, waiting for tomorrow's surgery. The next day crawled by. Tommy couldn't focus on his schoolwork, his mind constantly wandering to a hospital operating room where a little girl and a one-eyed teddy bear waited for a miracle. Ms. Peterson noticed his distraction, but didn't call on him, perhaps sensing that something was wrong. At recess, Tommy sat alone on a bench, watching other children play tag and kickball with an odd sense of detachment. How could the world just continue normally when Eliza was fighting for her life? "You okay?" Carlos asked, sitting beside him. Carlos was Mrs. Gonzalez's grandson, a quiet fourth grader who sometimes played chess with Tommy on rainy days. Tommy shrugged. "My pen pal is having heart surgery today." Carlos nodded solemnly. "My abuela had heart surgery last year. She was in the hospital for weeks, but she got better." "Really?" Tommy asked, feeling a flicker of hope. "Yeah, she has a big scar, but she says it just shows how strong she is." Carlos offered Tommy half of his chocolate bar. "Want some? Chocolate helps with worry. That's what my abuela says." Tommy accepted the candy, the sweetness momentarily distracting him from his concerns. "Thanks, Carlos." After school, Tommy wrote a new letter to Eliza, though he didn't know when or if she would read it. "Dear Eliza, I hope your surgery went well. I'm thinking about you today. My friend Carlos says his grandmother had heart surgery and she got better, so I know you will too. Bruno will be waiting for you, and so will I. Your friend, Tommy." He gave the letter to Ms. Peterson the next day, explaining Eliza's situation. She promised to make sure it was delivered as soon as possible. A week passed with no letter from Eliza, then another. Tommy grew increasingly anxious, pestering Ms. Peterson daily about mail deliveries. "These things take time, Tommy," she explained gently. "Eliza will need to recover before she can write back. The hospital knows to send her letters when she's ready." But as days turned into weeks with no word, Tommy began to fear the worst. Had something gone wrong? Was Eliza... He couldn't even complete the thought. His mother tried to reassure him. Recovery from major surgery takes a long time, Tommy. Eliza is probably just focusing on getting stronger. Tommy tried to believe her, but doubt crept in. He continued writing weekly letters, each one a little more desperate than the last, asking for any news, any sign that Eliza was okay. Finally, nearly 3 weeks after Eliza's last letter, an envelope arrived, but it wasn't in her handwriting. Tommy opened it with shaking hands, his heart in his throat. Inside was a typed note from a nurse. "Dear Tommy, Eliza asked me to write to you because her hands are still shaky. Her heart transplant was successful, and she's recovering well. The first week was very difficult, and she needed a second surgery to fix a complication. But the doctors are now very pleased with her progress. She wanted you to know that Bruno didn't leave her side, and that she's been telling all the doctors about her friend Tommy, who writes the best letters. She hopes to write to you herself soon. Sincerely, Nurse Jessie." Accompanying the note was a crayon drawing of a girl in a hospital bed with a teddy bear beside her. The girl had a big smile and a purple heart drawn on her chest. At the bottom, in unsteady letters, "Thank you for Bruno. He made me brave." Tommy felt a weight lift from his shoulders. She was okay. Bruno had helped her through it, just as he'd helped Tommy through so many difficult nights. He showed the note to Ms. Peterson, who smiled warmly. "That's wonderful news, Tommy. You should be very proud of the support you've given Eliza." That evening, Tommy and his mother celebrated with a rare treat, ice cream from the corner store. As they sat at their small kitchen table, Tommy's mother raised her plastic spoon in a toast. "To Eliza and her new heart," she said. "And to Bruno, the bravest bear in the world. And to Dad," Tommy added softly, "for teaching me about being brave." His mother's eyes glistened as she clinked her spoon against his. "To Dad," she agreed. 2 weeks later, a proper letter from Eliza arrived. The handwriting still wobbly, but unmistakably hers. She described the surgery, or what she remembered of it, the recovery room, the many medications she had to take, and how Bruno had a new accessory, a tiny felt heart pinned to his chest, made by one of the nurses to match Eliza's new heart. "The doctors say I might go home next month," she wrote. "I'll still need lots of checkups, but I won't have to live in the hospital anymore. Bruno is excited to see my house. Do you think we could be pen pals, even after I leave the hospital? Your friend, Eliza, and Bruno." Tommy wrote back immediately, "Dear Eliza and Bruno, I'm so happy you're getting better. Yes, we can definitely still be pen pals. Maybe someday we can even meet in person. Would that be okay? Your friend, Tommy." What Tommy didn't realize was that his connection to Eliza and Bruno was about to grow stronger in ways he never could have imagined, and that the universe wasn't quite finished weaving their stories together. May brought warm breezes and the scent of blooming flowers to the city. Tommy's classroom windows stayed open during the day, allowing butterflies to occasionally flutter in and cause delighted chaos among the students. The end of the school year approached, bringing with it the usual mix of excitement and anxiety about summer vacation and the transition to a new grade. Tommy continued his correspondence with Eliza, their letters growing longer and more detailed. Her recovery progressed well, though she described being tired easily and having to take so many pills I could open a pharmacy. Bruno remained her constant companion, sitting beside her during physical therapy sessions and joining her for the short walks she was now allowed to take around the hospital floor. "The doctors say I can go home next week," she wrote in early June. "I'll have to come back for checkups a lot. But I get to sleep in my own bed again, Bruno is excited about seeing my room. I've told him all about the glow-in-the-dark stars on my ceiling. Tommy felt genuinely happy for Eliza, though a small part of him worried that once she returned to her normal life, their friendship might fade. Would she still want to write to him when she was back with her school friends? "That's wonderful news," he wrote back. "I bet your family's really excited to have you home." What he didn't write was the question burning in his mind. What would happen to Bruno now? Would he still be special to Eliza outside the hospital? Or would he be just another stuffed animal among many? On the last day of school, Ms. Peterson announced a surprise. "Our Pen Pal program was such a success that the hospital has invited us to a special thank you event next Saturday. They're hosting an ice cream social for the patients who are well enough to attend and all of their pen pals." A buzz of excitement filled the classroom. Tommy felt his heart race. Meet Eliza in person? The possibility both thrilled and terrified him. "Can I go, Mom?" he asked that evening, showing her the permission slip. "It's at the Children's Hospital on Saturday." His mother studied the paper, her brow furrowing slightly. "I have to work on Saturday, Tommy. I'm covering Denise's shift." Tommy's hope deflated. "Oh." Seeing his disappointment, she quickly added, "But maybe Mrs. Gonzalez could take you? I know Carlos is going. He mentioned it when I ran into them earlier." Tommy brightened. "Really? You think she would?" "Let me talk to her tomorrow," his mother promised. "If she's willing to take you, then yes, you can go." The next day, it was arranged. Mrs. Gonzalez would take both Tommy and Carlos to the hospital event. Tommy could barely contain his excitement as he helped his mother clean the apartment, his mind racing with thoughts of finally meeting Eliza and seeing Bruno again. "Do you think she'll like me?" he asked his mother that night as she tucked him in. "In person, I mean." His mother smiled. "Of course she will. You're already friends through your letters. Meeting in person just makes it more real." What if Bruno doesn't remember me? The question slipped out before Tommy could stop it. His mother sat on the edge of his bed. "Tommy, Bruno is a teddy bear. He doesn't—" "I know he's not alive," Tommy interrupted. "But what if he feels different to me now? Or what if Eliza doesn't want to know that he used to be mine?" His mother considered this. "I think you'll know what to do when you see them. Trust your instincts, sweetheart. They're usually right." Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Sunny, but not too hot. Tommy dressed carefully in his nicest jeans and the blue button-up shirt his mother had bought him for school picture day. He combed his hair neatly and, after a moment's hesitation, slipped Bruno's red bow tie into his pocket. He didn't know if he would show it to Eliza, but having it with him felt important. Mrs. Gonzalez picked him up at noon, Carlos already in the back seat of her aging sedan. "Ready to meet your hospital friend?" she asked as Tommy buckled his seatbelt. Tommy nodded, too nervous to speak much during the 20-minute drive to the Children's Hospital. As they approached the imposing building with its colorful murals and butterfly-shaped logo, his stomach tightened with anticipation. The event was held in a large recreation room on the first floor. Balloons and streamers decorated the walls, and several tables offered ice cream with various toppings. Children of all ages filled the space, some in wheelchairs, some with IV poles, some showing no visible signs of illness but wearing the same patient ID bracelets. Tommy scanned the room anxiously, looking for a 7-year-old girl who might be Eliza. He had no idea what she looked like. They had never exchanged photos, only drawings. "Name tag, honey," a volunteer said, handing him a sticker. "Write your name and your pen pal's name so they can find you." Tommy carefully wrote, "Tommy," and beneath it, Eliza's pen pal. He stuck it to his shirt and continued scanning the room. That's when he saw her, or rather saw Bruno first. The familiar one-eyed teddy bear with a blue ribbon bow tie sat on the lap of a small girl with short dark hair. She wore a purple dress and had a surgical mask covering her nose and mouth, but her eyes were bright and alert, scanning the room just as Tommy's were. Tommy froze, suddenly uncertain. Should he approach her? What would he say? Before he could decide, the girl's eyes landed on him, or more specifically, on his name tag. Her eyes widened, and she tugged on the sleeve of the woman sitting beside her, pointing at Tommy. The woman, presumably Eliza's mother, looked over, smiled, and whispered something to Eliza. Then she stood and guided Eliza toward Tommy, one hand supportively at her back. As they approached, Tommy could see that Eliza walked slowly, carefully, as if conserving energy. Bruno was clutched tightly in her arm. "Are you Tommy?" the woman asked when they reached him. "I'm Diana, Eliza's mom, and this is Eliza." Tommy nodded, suddenly shy. "Hi," he managed. Eliza's eyes crinkled above her mask in what Tommy guessed was a smile. "Hi, Tommy," she said, her voice slightly muffled, but unmistakably the personality from the letters. "This is Bruno." She held the bear out slightly, and Tommy felt a surge of emotion seeing his old friend. Bruno looked exactly the same. Worn fur, missing eye, slightly crooked ear. Except for the blue ribbon bow tie and a small felt heart pinned to his chest. "Hi, Bruno," Tommy said softly, then immediately felt foolish for talking to a teddy bear in front of others. But Eliza didn't seem to find it strange at all. "He's happy to meet you," she said. "He told me so." Diana smiled at Tommy. "Eliza has told us so much about her wonderful pen pal. Your letters really brightened her days in the hospital. Especially the dragon drawings," Eliza added. "I put them all on my wall." Tommy felt himself relaxing slightly. "Do you want some ice cream?" he asked. "I haven't gotten any yet." Eliza looked up at her mother questioningly. Diana nodded. "Just a small amount, and remember to take your pill first." The two children walked to the ice cream table together, Bruno tucked under Eliza's arm. Tommy noticed that she moved slowly, and he matched his pace to hers without comment. "I can't have chocolate because of my medicine," Eliza explained as they surveyed the options. "But vanilla with sprinkles is my favorite anyway." Tommy chose strawberry with chocolate sauce, and they found a small table where they could sit together. Diana joined them, as did Mrs. Gonzalez and Carlos, who had found a pen pal of his own. As they ate their ice cream, Tommy and Eliza chatted about their letters, their schools, and their summer plans. Eliza would be spending most of summer getting stronger, as she put it, with regular visits to the hospital for checkups. "But the doctors say I might be able to go to the beach for a day in August if everything keeps going well," she said hopefully. Bruno has never seen the ocean. Tommy nodded, still occasionally glancing at Bruno, who sat on the table between them. The teddy bear seemed to be looking at him with his one-button eye, and Tommy could almost imagine him winking. Halfway through their conversation, Tommy noticed that Eliza was getting tired. Her responses became shorter, and she leaned more heavily against her chair. "Are you okay?" he asked. Eliza nodded. "Just tired. It happens a lot since my surgery. Mom says it's normal." Diana checked her watch. "We should probably head home soon, sweetheart. You need your rest." Disappointment flashed across Eliza's face, but she didn't argue. "Can I have 5 more minutes with Tommy?" Her mother nodded. "I'll go talk to Dr. Rivera while you finish up. She wanted to see how you're doing." She moved to a nearby group of adults, keeping Eliza in her sight. Once they were relatively alone, Eliza leaned forward. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "It's about Bruno." Tommy's heart skipped a beat. "What about him?" Eliza glanced around conspiratorially, then continued. "Sometimes, at night, I think he talks to me. Not out loud, but in my head. Is that weird?" Tommy shook his head quickly. "No, that's not weird. He hesitated, then decided to take a risk. "I used to have a teddy bear that I talked to, too." "Really?" Eliza's eyes brightened above her mask. "What was his name?" This was it, the moment of truth. Tommy took a deep breath. "His name was Bruno." Eliza stared at him, confused. "But that's the same name, I know." Tommy reached into his pocket and pulled out the red bow tie. This was his. Eliza looked at the bow tie, then at Bruno with his blue ribbon, then back at Tommy. "I don't understand." "Bruno used to be my teddy bear," Tommy explained gently. "I donated him to the toy drive at school, for the hospital. I didn't know he would go to you. I didn't know we'd become pen pals. It just happened." Eliza was silent for a long moment, processing this information. Tommy worried he had made a terrible mistake. Would she be upset? Would she think he had been dishonest? Finally, she spoke. "So, that's why he knew your name." "What?" Tommy asked, confused. "When I first got Bruno, I was really scared about my heart surgery. I held him at night when I couldn't sleep, and sometimes I would talk to him. One night, I asked him his name, and in my head, I heard Bruno. And then, another time, when I was really scared about a test, I heard him say, 'Tommy says being brave isn't about not being scared.' I thought I was just remembering your letter, but..." She looked at Bruno with newfound wonder. "He was yours first?" Tommy nodded, relieved that she wasn't upset. "But he's yours now. He's where he needs to be." Eliza touched the felt heart on Bruno's chest. "Because of my new heart." "Yeah," Tommy agreed. "And because you needed him." Eliza carefully picked up Bruno and looked at him thoughtfully. Then, to Tommy's surprise, she held the bear out to him. "Do you want to hold him? Just for a minute?" Tommy hesitated, then gently took Bruno from her hands. The familiar weight and texture brought back a rush of memories. Nights spent whispering secrets, days of adventures, the comfort of having someone who always understood. But something was different now. Bruno felt lighter somehow, as if some of the sadness Tommy had poured into him over the years had been replaced with something new. "He feels happy," Tommy said, surprised by his own words. Eliza nodded seriously. "He is. He told me." Tommy handed Bruno back, along with the red bow tie. "You should keep this too. It's his original one." Eliza accepted both with careful hands. "I'll keep it safe. Maybe sometimes he can wear the red one and sometimes the blue one." "That sounds perfect," Tommy agreed. Diana returned then, indicating it was time to leave. As Eliza stood to go, she asked, "Will you still write to me, even though we've met now?" "Of course," Tommy promised. "And maybe we can visit sometimes, if your mom says it's okay." Diana, overhearing this, smiled. "I think that would be wonderful. Eliza needs good friends during her recovery." As they said their goodbyes, Eliza suddenly stepped forward and gave Tommy a quick hug. Bruno squished between them. "Thank you for Bruno," she whispered, "and for being my friend." Tommy hugged her back carefully, mindful of her recent surgery. "Thank you for taking care of him," he replied. As he watched Eliza leave, Bruno secure in her arms, Tommy felt a sense of completion. The circle that had begun with his donation had closed in the most unexpected way. He had lost a teddy bear, but gained a friend. And somehow, Bruno was exactly where he was meant to be, continuing his job of bringing comfort, now to a girl with a new heart and a whole life ahead of her. On the drive home with Mrs. Gonzalez and Carlos, Tommy was unusually quiet, processing everything that had happened. "Did you have a good time?" Mrs. Gonzalez asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. Tommy nodded. "Yeah, it was perfect." That night, for the first time since giving Bruno away, Tommy slept peacefully without clutching the red bow tie. Instead, he dreamed of beaches and oceans, of Bruno with 2 bow ties, and of a girl with a new heart and a bright smile hidden behind a mask. In the dream, they were all running together along the shore, leaving footprints in the sand that the waves couldn't quite wash away. What Tommy didn't know yet was that this day marked not an ending, but a beginning. The story of Tommy, Eliza, and Bruno was far from over. In fact, it was just taking an unexpected new turn, one that would shape all their lives in ways none of them could imagine. Summer arrived with scorching heat that made Tommy's apartment nearly unbearable. He spent his days at the community center and his weekends visiting Eliza, whose recovery progressed steadily. Their friendship deepened as they shared stories, played games, and created elaborate adventures for Bruno, who now proudly wore both bow ties, the red one around his neck and the blue one on his head. In late July, Diana announced exciting news. Eliza's doctors had approved a day trip to the beach. "We were wondering if you and your mom would like to join us, Tommy." The beach day was perfect. Building sandcastles, wading in shallow water, and flying kites under the clear blue sky. During one of Eliza's rest periods, she confided in Tommy. "The doctors say I'm doing really well, but I'll always have to be careful. I'll never be completely normal." "Normal is overrated," Tommy replied. "Jeremy Miller is normal, and he's the biggest jerk in 3rd grade." Eliza laughed, but remained thoughtful. "Do you think Bruno would have liked me if I didn't need a new heart? If I was just a regular kid?" "Of course. Bruno likes people for who they are, not what's wrong with them. That's why he was such a good friend after my dad died." Eliza squeezed his hand. "I'm glad Bruno brought us together. You're my best friend, Tommy." "You're mine too," he replied, surprised by how true it was. A week later, Eliza arrived at Tommy's apartment with an exciting proposal. "What if we made a real book? A story about Bruno and how he helps kids who are scared or sick or sad." Diana explained that her publishing friend saw potential in the idea. "There's a need for children's books about serious illness that aren't depressing. Stories that help kids feel brave." "We could write it together," Eliza continued. "I can do the words, and you can do the pictures." By summer's end, they had completed Bruno's Brave Heart, a story about a one-eyed teddy bear with magical bow ties who brought comfort to children in need. Diana's publishing friend was impressed. "This has potential. I'd like to show it to some colleagues." As Tommy prepared for 4th grade, he reflected on how much had changed since donating Bruno. He had lost a teddy bear but gained a best friend. He had discovered a talent for illustration and learned that sometimes the things we release come back to us in unexpected ways. The next morning, Tommy walked into his new classroom with newfound confidence. He was Tommy, friend of Eliza, former owner of Bruno, and illustrator of Bruno's Brave Heart. Whatever 4th grade might bring, he was ready. And somewhere across the city, A one-eyed teddy bear with two bow ties sat watching over a girl with a healing heart as they both prepared for new beginnings. Their story, Tommy's, Eliza's, and Bruno's, was far from over. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning.